When was the last time you actually felt your birthday? Not marked it, not acknowledged it, with the quiet efficiency of someone checking off a task, but felt it, the way you did when you were 7, when the day itself seemed to glow differently, when the air tasted sweeter, when you woke up convinced the world had rearranged itself just slightly in your honor. There's a peculiar kind of person who emerges in adulthood. You've seen them. You might be them. They treat their birthday like a dentist appointment. Necessary to note, but nothing to celebrate. It's just another day, they say, with a shrug that looks like indifference, but feels like something else entirely. Something heavier, something protected. And here's what's strange. When you were a child, your birthday was the opposite of just another day. It was the day, the axis around which the year turned. Cake was a given. Attention was guaranteed. Your existence, for once, required no justification. You were celebrated simply for having arrived, for having survived another rotation around the sun. But somewhere between childhood and now, something shifted. The day that once felt like a spotlight now feels like exposure. The celebration you once craved now feels like vulnerability. So what happened? What transforms anticipation into avoidance? What turns the desire to be seen into the need to hide? This isn't about maturity. It's not about growing up or getting over yourself. It's about something far more human, far more tender. It's about the quiet mathematics of disappointment, the architecture of self-protection, the way we learn, slowly, imperceptibly, to need less, to expect nothing, to armor ourselves against the specific kind of hurt that comes from hoping someone will remember and then learning they forgot. Let's talk about why you stopped celebrating your birthday and what that really means. Here's what a birthday meant when you were young. Proof. Proof that you mattered. Proof that your presence in the world warranted acknowledgement. The cake wasn't just sugar and flour. It was evidence. The presents weren't just objects. They were translations of affection into something you could hold. The song, sung off-key by people who loved you, was a ritual that said, "You are here. We see you. We're glad you exist." Children don't question this. They accept celebration the way they accept sunlight, as natural, as deserved, as their birthright. A child doesn't think, "Do I merit this attention?" They simply bask in it. They wear birthday crowns without irony. They believe with their whole hearts that the day belongs to them. And then you grow up. And growing up teaches you a different mathematics. It teaches you that attention is conditional, that celebration must be earned, that the world doesn't automatically bend toward acknowledging you. You must make yourself worth acknowledging. You learn that disappointment is more reliable than joy, that unmet expectations hurt more than no expectations at all. So you do what any intelligent creature does when repeatedly hurt. You adapt. You lower the stakes. You tell yourself, and anyone who asks, that birthdays don't matter. It's just another day, you say, and you almost believe it. But here's the truth beneath that phrase. The truth you perhaps don't say aloud. If I don't make it matter, then it can't hurt me when others don't either. This is the emotional bargain of adulthood. Preemptive disappointment. You shrink the target of your needs until it's so small, so modest, that missing it feels like your fault, not theirs. You tell yourself you're being mature, reasonable, low maintenance. What you don't tell yourself is that you're also becoming invisible, first to others, then to yourself. The child who wore the crown didn't need to justify their existence, but the adult who says it's just another day has already decided their existence isn't worth the disruption, isn't worth the reminder, isn't worth the risk of hoping someone else will remember what you're trying so hard to forget. That you're still here, that you survived another year, that maybe, just maybe, you'd like someone to notice. Let's be precise about what's happening here, because this isn't indifference. It never was. This is anticipatory grief. This is emotional inoculation. This is the psychology of bracing yourself against a wound you've felt before and refused to feel again. In psychology, there's a concept called learned helplessness. The way repeated disappointment teaches you to stop trying, stop hoping, stop reaching. But there's something adjacent to this, something subtler. Learned self-sufficiency. The way you teach yourself not to need what you've learned, you won't receive. You've been forgotten before, or remembered perfunctorily, a text at 11:47 p.m., a generic message that could have been copy-pasted to anyone. Or worse, remembered by obligation rather than affection, the kind of attention that feels more like duty than desire. And each time, you felt it, that small collapse in your chest, that quiet confirmation. I am not as important as I hoped I was. So you stopped hoping. You told yourself it was maturity. And in a way, it is. But it's also something else. It's preemptive abandonment. You leave yourself before others can. You dismiss your own significance before they have the chance to. It's control masquerading as humility. It's self-protection wearing the mask of being low-key. Because here's what you discovered. Needing hurts. Wanting hurts. The open hand is the vulnerable hand. So you closed your fist. You stopped asking. You stopped hinting. You stopped posting cryptic social media statuses the week before, hoping someone would notice, would remember, would care enough to mark the day without being reminded. You became the person who says, please, no fuss. And you meant it, but you also didn't. This is the paradox. You genuinely don't want attention. You genuinely do. Both are true. Both live inside you simultaneously. You don't want the performance of celebration, the forced cheer, the obligatory gathering. But you do want to be seen. Quietly, specifically, in a way that doesn't require you to ask for it. You want someone to remember without being told, to care without being prompted, to acknowledge that you're here, you're alive, you matter, without you having to orchestrate your own mattering. In attachment theory, this is called dismissive avoidant behavior. You've learned to deactivate your attachment system, to minimize your needs, to pride yourself on not needing anyone. I'm fine alone, you say, and you are. But fine isn't the same as fulfilled. Alone isn't the same as chosen. The truth is this. Every time you say, it's just another day, you're performing a small act of emotional violence against yourself. You're agreeing with every person who forgot. You're validating every disappointment. You're saying, you're right. I'm not worth celebrating. And the cruelest part? You're doing it to protect yourself. Because if you don't matter, you can't be hurt by not mattering. If you're already nothing special, then being treated as nothing special is just accurate. But you know what's underneath all of this, don't you? Longing, Not the loud kind, not the demanding kind, the quiet kind. The kind that sits in your chest like a stone you've learned to carry. The kind that whispers, just once a year, what if someone remembered? What if I didn't have to pretend I don't care? What if, just this once, I was allowed to want to be celebrated? There's something else at work here. Something cultural. Something we absorb without realizing we're absorbing it. Somewhere in the architecture of adulthood, there's an unspoken rule. Needing less makes you more grown up. We valorize independence, self-sufficiency, the person who doesn't need anything from anyone. We call them mature, together, low maintenance. We treat emotional restraint as sophistication and vulnerability as regression. To need celebration, to want acknowledgement, to care about your birthday, these become markers of immaturity. Childish things. Things you're supposed to outgrow along with training wheels and imaginary friends. So you learn the performance. You learn to say, it's just another day, with the right amount of casual detachment. You learn to wave off well wishes with practiced humility. You learn to treat your own existence as unremarkable, because remarkable people, mature people, don't need external validation. They've transcended that, haven't they? But here's what we don't talk about. This isn't maturity. This is suppression. This is emotional capitalism. The idea that the less you need, the more valuable you are. That your worth is measured by your ability to shrink yourself, to require nothing, to be grateful for scraps. Real maturity isn't the absence of needs. It's the ability to acknowledge them. To say, I want to be celebrated without shame. To admit, I care about this without apology. To recognize that wanting to be seen isn't weakness. It's human, because we all want to be seen. Every single one of us. The CEO in the corner office, the artist in the studio, the parent folding laundry at midnight, the teenager pretending they don't care. We all carry this fundamental need to be witnessed, to be known, to have our existence acknowledged as meaningful, even if just for a day. That's not immaturity, that's being alive. But our culture doesn't make space for this. We've built a world that rewards emotional austerity, that treats celebration as frivolous. That pathologizes the desire for attention, while simultaneously demanding we perform success, happiness, and achievement for public consumption on every other day of the year. You can post your accomplishments, your vacations, your carefully curated life, but wanting someone to remember your birthday without you having to remind them, that's needy. That's asking too much. That's being high maintenance. So you stop asking, you stop wanting, or rather, you stop admitting you want. And here's the developmental irony. The reason you can't celebrate your birthday as an adult isn't because you've matured beyond it. It's because you've been hurt by it. The child who wore the crown didn't need protection. The adult who says, it's fine, is covered in armor. You haven't outgrown the need to be celebrated. You've just outgrown the belief that you will be. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to believe you don't deserve it. That the effort someone would have to make to remember, to plan, to show up for you, is too much to ask. That you're too much. That your existence, your survival, your continued presence in the world isn't significant enough to disrupt anyone's Tuesday. But that's not truth. That's trauma disguised as humility. But perhaps there's another way to understand this, a gentler interpretation. Because not everyone who treats their birthday like a normal day is running from disappointment. Some are walking towards something else, something quieter, something that doesn't translate well to social media or greeting cards. There's a kind of celebration that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't need witnesses, that happens in the space between you and yourself, a private acknowledgement that you're still here, still breathing, still becoming. It's not indifference. It's not protection. It's intimacy with your own existence. Maybe you've reached a place where celebration doesn't require performance, where marking another year doesn't need cake or candles or a restaurant reservation, where the significance of your survival, your growth, your accumulated wisdom can be honored in silence, in gratitude, in the simple act of noticing. This is different from the armor we talked about earlier. This is something that comes after you've done the work. After you've learned that your worth isn't determined by how many people remember your birthday. After you've made peace with the fact that most people are too consumed by their own lives to track yours. And that's okay. That's not rejection. That's just reality. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a concept called upekkha, equanimity, not detachment, not indifference, but a profound acceptance of things as they are, without the suffering that comes from wishing they were different. You can want something without needing it. You can appreciate celebration without requiring it. You can hold your birthday lightly as one day among thousands, each one a small miracle of continued existence. This isn't the same as saying, it's just another day, to protect yourself. This is recognizing that every day is both ordinary and extraordinary. That your life doesn't need a designated date to matter. That you don't need permission or acknowledgement to celebrate your own resilience. Some of you have learned to be your own quiet anchor. You've stopped waiting for others to validate what you already know. That you've survived things that tried to break you. That you've grown in ways no one sees. That you've become kinder, wiser, more whole, even if the world hasn't noticed. And on your birthday, you might make yourself a nice meal, or take yourself somewhere beautiful, or simply sit with a cup of tea and think, another year, another revolution around the sun, another chapter in an ongoing story that only I know the full weight of. That's not sad. That's not loneliness. That's self-recognition. And it's one of the most profound forms of love. But here's where it gets complex. This peaceful acceptance and the protective armor can look identical from the outside. Both say, it's just another day. Both decline the fuss. Both seem content alone. The difference is internal. One is running from hurt. The other is resting in wholeness. One is saying, I don't matter enough to celebrate. The other is saying, I matter so deeply that I don't need to prove it. So the question isn't whether you celebrate your birthday. The question is, why? Are you avoiding pain? Or have you transcended the need for external validation? Are you protecting yourself? Or have you learned to hold yourself? Only you know the answer. And the answer might be different every year. Some birthdays, you're in the armor. Some birthdays, you're in the peace. Both are okay. Both are human. Both are part of the long, slow work of learning to exist in a world that won't always see you the way you want to be seen. The work is learning to see yourself anyway. Let's pull back for a moment. Let's look at this from the widest possible angle. What is a birthday, really? It's an arbitrary marker. a human invention. The Earth doesn't pause in its orbit to note your arrival. The universe doesn't ring bells. Time doesn't care that you were born. It continues, indifferent and infinite, whether you're here or not. And yet, you are here, against incomprehensible odds. You, this specific configuration of atoms and experiences and memories, exist. You survived the lottery of conception, the vulnerability of birth, the thousand small disasters of childhood, the heartbreaks and illnesses, and moments where you almost gave up. You made it through another year in a world that breaks people daily. That's not nothing. In existential philosophy, there's this idea that existence precedes essence, that you weren't born with inherent meaning. You create it every day by choosing to continue, by showing up, by remaining curious or kind, or simply here when everything in you wants to disappear. Your birthday isn't just a commemoration of when you were born. It's a testament to every day since that you chose to keep living. And here's what's profound. You don't need anyone else to acknowledge that for it to be true. Your existence doesn't require witnesses to be significant. You are, as the philosopher Martin Buber might say, an atos asuaimum, meeting the world as thou, complete, whole, significant in your own right. But we are also relational beings. We are wired for connection, for mirroring, for the profound human experience of being already known. And there's no shame in wanting that, in wanting someone to mark your continued existence with more than a text message, with more than autopilot courtesy. The tension lives here, between existential self-sufficiency and relational longing, between being whole alone and wanting to be seen, between not needing celebration and deserving it anyway. Maybe the answer isn't choosing between these things. Maybe it's holding both. Maybe it's saying, I am complete as I am, and I want to be celebrated. I don't need your validation, and I long for your attention. I can honor myself, and I want you to honor me too. Both, always both. So when someone asks you, when's your birthday? And you say, oh, it's just another day. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself what you really mean. Are you protecting yourself? That's okay. Armor exists for a reason. You've been hurt before. You've learned that hope can be a liability. And there's wisdom in that, in knowing your limits, in managing your expectations, in not placing your emotional well-being in the hands of people who might forget. You don't need to wait for permission to honor that. You don't need a party, or a crowd, or proof that others care. You can light your own candle, acknowledge your own endurance, whisper your own gratitude into the quiet space between who you were and who you're becoming. And maybe, just maybe, you can do something radical. You can allow yourself to want more than that. To want connection without shame, to want celebration without apology, to want to be seen, known, remembered, not because you need it to survive, but because you're human, and humans are meant to witness each other's continued existence with more than indifference. Or have you found genuine peace? Have you learned to hold your existence lightly, to celebrate yourself quietly, to need nothing because you've become everything you need? That's beautiful too. That's the work of a lifetime, learning to be your own witness, your own celebration, your own proof that you matter. But if you're somewhere in between, and most of us are, then maybe this is your invitation. Not to throw yourself a party, not to demand attention, not to perform celebration you don't feel. You were born. That's the first miracle. You survived. That's the second. You're still here, still trying, still becoming. That's the ongoing one. And maybe the most mature thing you can do isn't pretending you don't care. Maybe it's admitting that you do. Maybe it's allowing yourself to be seen, to be celebrated, to be acknowledged, not because you need it to know you're worthy, but because you already know you are, and you're finally brave enough to let others see it too. You don't have to wait for your birthday to do this. You can honor your existence today, right now. You can place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and recognize, I'm here. I made it. I'm still going. That's worth celebrating. Quietly or loudly, alone or with others, with cake or without. But it's worth celebrating. You're worth celebrating. Even if you're the only one who knows it. Even if you've convinced yourself it's just another day. It isn't. It never was. But to be honest, with yourself first, then maybe with others. To say, I matter. My continued existence matters. And I'm allowed to want that acknowledged. To say, I've survived another year, and that's worth something. Even if no one else sees it, I see it. To say, I'm human. I want to be remembered. And that doesn't make me weak or needy or childish. It makes me alive. Your birthday doesn't have to be a grand production. It doesn't have to be Instagram worthy or memorable to anyone but you. But it also doesn't have to be invisible. It doesn't have to pass unmarked. It doesn't have to be swallowed by the lie that you don't deserve celebration. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about maturity. It's not about needing less. It's about being honest about what you need. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to want things, to ask for things, to admit that after all these years of surviving, you'd still like someone to notice that you did. You don't have to diminish yourself to be loved. You don't have to pretend you don't care to be acceptable. You don't have to perform indifference to prove you're mature. You can say, my birthday matters to me. You can say, I want you to remember. You can say, I'd like to be celebrated. And that doesn't make you needy. It makes you honest. And if they forget anyway, if they don't show up the way you hoped, that hurts. It's allowed to hurt. But their forgetting doesn't erase your significance. Their absence doesn't diminish your presence. You were here before they noticed. You'll be here after they forget. Your birthday is yours, not theirs. It belongs to you, the person who survived every single day between this one and the last one. The person who grew and stumbled and got back up. The person who learned things no one will ever know. The person who became who you are through trials and choices that only you witnessed. You don't need to wait for permission to honor that. You don't need a party or a crowd or proof that others care. You can light your own candle, acknowledge your own endurance, whisper your own gratitude into the quiet space between who you were and who you're becoming. And maybe, just maybe, you can do something radical. You can allow yourself to want more than that. To want connection without shame, to want celebration without apology, to want to be seen, known, remembered, not because you need it to survive, but because you're human, and humans are meant to witness each other's continued existence with more than indifference. So when someone asks you, when's your birthday? And you say, oh, it's just another day. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself what you really mean. Are you protecting yourself? That's okay. Armor exists for a reason. You've been hurt before. You've learned that hope can be a liability. And there's wisdom in that, in knowing your limits, in managing your expectations, in not placing your emotional well-being in the hands of people who might forget. Or have you found genuine peace? Have you learned to hold your existence lightly, to celebrate yourself quietly, to need nothing because you've become everything you need. That's beautiful too. That's the work of a lifetime, learning to be your own witness, your own celebration, your own proof that you matter. But if you're somewhere in between, and most of us are, then maybe this is your invitation, not to throw yourself a party, not to demand attention, not to perform celebration you don't feel, but to be honest, with yourself first, then maybe with others, to say, I matter, my continued existence matters, and I'm allowed to want that acknowledged, to say, I've survived another year, and that's worth something. Even if no one else sees it, I see it. To say, I'm human, I want to be remembered, and that doesn't make me weak or needy or childish. It makes me alive. Your birthday doesn't have to be a grand production. It doesn't have to be Instagram worthy or memorable to anyone but you. But it also doesn't have to be invisible. It doesn't have to pass unmarked. It doesn't have to be swallowed by the lie that you don't deserve celebration. You were born. That's the first miracle. You survived. That's the second. You're still here, still trying, still becoming. That's the ongoing one. And maybe the most mature thing you can do isn't pretending you don't care. Maybe it's admitting that you do. Maybe it's allowing yourself to be seen, to be celebrated, to be acknowledged, not because you need it to know you're worthy, but because you already know you are, and you're finally brave enough to let others see it too. You don't have to wait for your birthday to do this. You can honor your existence today, right now. You can place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and recognize, I'm here. I made it. I'm still going. That's worth celebrating. Quietly or loudly, alone or with others, with cake or without. But it's worth celebrating. You're worth celebrating. Even if you're the only one who knows it. Even if you've convinced yourself it's just another day. It isn't. It never was.